Hi everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and this is week 3 of the Stitch Notebook, and I am so excited about this. It is when I get to start stitching on the cover, and I had such a blast. It was so much fun. Now that the cover's all set to go, I can just start stitching, and I can't even describe how much fun this was. So let me show you what I did. Now, this is where I'm at. And let me pull back a little bit. You'll see that it is kind of held onto the notebook with these clips because it's just a flat piece of fabric. I just wanted to show it in progress. There's a spine. So there's a doily in the middle. And here's the back. Doing a bit of slow stitching in my RV. It's pouring rain. Have the electric fireplace going. But the sound of the rain is so comforting. This is just so relaxing. So here is the flower. I wanted to show what the center looked like. So it has these, just like a poppy would, these lines radiating out from the center. This is the fabric, but this is where I am in my stitching on it. But I wanted to share what I'm doing in the center there. So I did a solid stitch radiating outwards. What I'm going to do is come under and go under 2 stitches. And when you do that, the first stitch becomes a nice loop onto that straight stitch, and now you're ready to continue on. And I have my needle turned backwards so that the tip does not, the point doesn't catch on the fabric. So this is about, let me show you, this stitch right here, this vertical, is maxed out on how many wraps it could take. So I'm going to take the needle and go back, actually go down. Okay, let me pull back. Hard to keep that in frame. And the only reason I went down through the fabric is because the vertical line is too short. So now what I'm doing is I'm coming up on this next straight stitch, but I'm coming up a little bit on the closer side to it, and then I'm going to start wrapping again, 2 stitches at a time. Okay, so that I'm going to stop there on the center, but I didn't really show you how the flower turned out. So I filled in a lot of this color with just a random satin stitch. I still have to finish the center of it. I think I'm almost done with all of the flower. I just, like this whole centerpiece, I need to work on a little bit. And I realized too, I need to make sure the edges are all tacked down. I've been working on this and getting that flower done. The center of the poppy turned out just really fun. And because it's like a little ball shape in the center there, I'm just going to do like a satin stitch all the way around to to make it look like it's raised up. For the raised area around the center of the poppy, I'm going to do a raised satin stitch. First thing you have to do with the raised satin stitch is to do a back stitch outlining the whole area that you're going to come back in and do the satin stitch. So this is just following the outline of that green area. So I finished outlining this little area around the center, and I'm coming back in with the darkest green, because over here is going to be where the shading starts. The thing with the raised satin stitch is that you come up on one side of the back stitch that you did on the outer side, and you use the other side, you go on the other side of it. So the two parallel back stitches are actually what raise the stitch up slightly. I finished the center of the poppy, and you can see the raised satin stitch around it, just a little extra dimension to it, because I'm going to be working on this leaf. I have 6 strands of the medium green. So I started at the top, and I'm going to follow the vein in the center. And then I'm coming up a little to the left of center. And I'm going to come down and stitch right below where that first stitch started. You can fill in the entire leaf with this stitch, but I want it to be a little more playful, like the flower is, with different greens. So I'm going to work a little bit of the medium green, and I will bring in a few of the other colors. And here's a trick. If you're using a needle threader and you're having trouble, the thread is really thick to pull through, if you do it just on the tip of your thread, whether it's pearl cotton, it's obviously the tip will be a little thinner or mushed together a little bit better. So it's kind of a nice way to pull it through. In a pinch, sorry, had to do that joke. I'm doing all of this in 6 strands. Okay, so there. It does pull in or pull through a little bit easier than if you were to try to catch it in the middle. So I basically have 3 needles ready to go. So I want to mix it up in there. And when I say mix it up, I also want to do some different stitches. I don't want it to be a perfect leaf stitch. So let me decide how I'm going to introduce the other colors. I'm going to park this here. And let's do the light green. Okay. I want this to be the joy of slow stitching, just going where I want to go with it. Okay, I'm going to keep working this, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. So I did some of the dark green pearl cotton here, and then I mixed in the light green and the medium green throughout that leaf. So it's not a perfect leaf stitch, but I wanted it to have different textures and irregular stitching. It's slow stitching. It's whatever I wanted to do. So this leaf is almost done. So I'm starting in on this leaf, and I still have some of the pearl cotton, so I'm going to do the dark shadows down in here. I have been stitching away, and I have the flower mostly done. I still need to add the stamens that come out from here. But that, let me bring it up a little closer so you can see how much I've done on the flower. Now, two things I wanted to share especially today is I'm working with this new frame, stitching frame. This one is 11 inches. It is really nice. It's different than a hoop because it does a wider area, obviously, but it holds everything, and it's a little hard to get off to start with, but it really holds it well, and it holds a large working area, and it's nice to work with. They are available on Amazon, at Joann's, at Michael's. They are a stitching frame, and they come smaller, but I like this size. It was a practical size because I needed it larger, so this was the perfect size for it. So that's something new on my work desk. The other thing is I wanted to share, now that I had this flower done, let me show you. Okay. So this is what the flower looked like on the fabric itself. But it had this bud. And the bud was coming out. You could see the start of it here, kind of came out to here, and it looked very awkward. So I did a little study on how poppies grow, and they have this knack for bending over, whether it's the bud or let me close in a little bit. A big green blob there didn't make me happy. So I wanted to make it like it's a flower bud opening, but I didn't have, I know it sounds funny, I have all this fabric, but I didn't want to cut into a flower that I didn't need to. I wanted to save the flowers for other projects. So I have this fabric here, which had a similar pink color. So what I did, I cut an itty bitty piece and make it look like the flower is opening up there. A couple other things I'm going to be changing on my plan is I had this in place, and actually I've changed my mind. I don't want to use this in here. So that is going away, but I have something to replace it, and I will share that later. But I do know I have something that I think will work much, much better there. So that part. And then this top corner needs something, and I'm not sure what yet. So I am going to start by cutting this bud open. And the way these poppies bloom, they kind of just burst open. So something like that. Let me come in. So you can see now where it's just spreading open. And that is a little more of what poppies look like as they burst open. Now I can adjust it a little bit as I go, but it does look like the flowers, the bud is right there, and I definitely like that better than a big green blob. So one of the things I like to do is a little basting stitch or tacking stitch. It's using just regular thread and big stitches. Let me show you. See the white thread on the green? So it just holds everything in place. You can use pins to hold it down. So I'm just going to kind of do the stitching that I did here and just build up a little bit in there. This frame is good if you're working on your lap. It's a little different if you're working, trying to hold it up in front of on a desktop in front of the camera. I'm working with the lightest pink floss. So there's the petal of the bud. I'm doing some of the dark shadowy pieces right now, stitches in here. I like the way the edge of the fabric lifts up and adds sort of a ripply effect there, so I'm going to leave that. The thing is, though, about the stem. Now, what I was thinking of doing is couching down this piece of yarn. So I went digging through another box of yarn that had this shade of green. It's still a yarn as opposed to a cord, but it's a little bit better shade. So I think I will couch that down. Let me cut off a piece. And I found something else. Now, the thing about poppy seed pods is that before they open, or while they're forming, they have a very fuzzy look to them. So I found this yarn, and it's a very fuzzy look. So what I might do, I think I'm going to stitch some of this fuzz along the edge. So let me go ahead and add a little more dark green shading to the poppy. I now have the stem that I want. So I need, I think, more of the medium green. Okay, so before I do too much more of this dark green, let me park it over here and come in and start couching the stem down. And I'm just going to follow the movement of the branch or the stem. So there, I have the stem in place, and on this yarn that I have, there is only about, what is that, about 6 inches of green of the stringy yarn before it goes brown. I'm stitching with this yarn, which has a lot of little thick knots in between. So it is adding the fuzzy edge that I want, but it is winging it. I just keep a little tiny bit between the stitches. And I think I can finish this one off, which, okay, so it is fuzzy. That is how poppy seed pods look. It's very realistic, actually. So I'm going to just cover this side along this edge doing it the same way, hopefully more green than this dark color. So I love the way that turned out. So the poppy is almost done except for the center part. Now I'm going to go back a little bit more. I'm going to concentrate next on this back panel. Now this here is the back panel, and I had this from a previous Stitch Your Stamp project. To me, this is real meaningful because I designed this sunflower back in my college days, and then when I was designing stamps, I used it for an actual stamp, and then I took that stamp and I did a Stitch Your stamp. So this has decades of meaning to me, this flower itself. So I want to add this to it. It also ties in some of the yellow from the daisies up there, but I want to cut it out. I'm going to do a wide fussy cut around it. I decided to stitch it down using a blanket stitch and a very neutral colored embroidery floss. And I also add some seed beads around the center of the flower. That is pretty much the flower for now is done. What I'm going to do in this upper corner, I have this unopened, probably 1970s era sheet. We accidentally found hidden away in our RVs. The previous owner must have put it in a drawer and it fell behind, but it has these butterflies, and I haven't even opened the package. But there's kind of this one, and I'm going to stitch over it, so I'm not even concerned about the color. I could change the color when I stitch it. I have to open my butterfly. Oh my, hasn't seen the light of day since probably the 70s. Let's go for it. Because I'm looking at this butterfly right now. I kind of wish it were going this direction. So I did do a Stitch Your Stamp project of a butterfly, and I did it with thread painting. The only problem is there's so much blue in it, it really wouldn't work with this project. I'm looking at Plan B. Once I determined I'm going to do a satin stitch to fill in the butterfly, I realized I can go back to this brownish butterfly, and because I'm going to color it all in, you won't see the brown and the orangey colors that do not match. And I will fill in all the areas with color that will match, and it'll work, and it's turned in the, I could turn it in the correct direction that I want. And now I like the placement of my butterfly. I like the size, I like the direction, and I'm just going to fill this in this color palette. I'm starting with the darker coral color, and I'm just doing a satin stitch filling in the outer part of the wing. So there's the first part of the wing. I have my butterfly done. The body of the butterfly, I used very thin ribbon, and where it comes in and out of the background, it narrows just naturally, so it made a very nice butterfly body. I decided what I'm going to do is a running stitch using the lightest shade of pink from the butterfly, and I'm just going to stitch the path up that the butterfly flew. I decided to sew some straight stitches in here that makes little crosses, basically to hold down these woven fabrics, but also to add some other depth of texture, of pattern. I think that's going to be the most fun part about this whole project, is that the more you look, the more you see. There's different things happening in there. So there was one more follow-up piece that I wanted to do, or I have it all laid out, but since this piece, this vintage piece, let me come in a little bit, is so prominent, it's centered in the back spine, and for some reason, well, I know why, but every time I see it, it reminds me of a snowman. The 3 buttons, kind of the round head, and some strange arms. So now you're going to see that all the time. So I wanted to change it up a little bit. I can always add to it. So that's what I'm going to do. I also wanted to point out, I added the Roman numerals for 2025, the year that I'm making this. I, as a kid, memorized Roman numerals, so I have that there just because it's easier to stitch. I want to make this prettier, so I'm going to add some stitching to it. So what I'm doing is a upside down, I'm using 6 strands of embroidery floss. I'm doing an upside down lazy daisy stitch. Normally the pointy end is at the bottom, but because I am doing a leaf, I am doing the pointy part on the outside. So it's the opposite direction as the flower petal, and it creates a pointier leaf shape. So I'm going to go around and do these lazy daisy stitches down the stem. And I think the whole thing is that to realize that if you can make a vintage piece look even prettier, then go for it. Or not even necessarily prettier, but more to make you happier the way it looks. Just that, you can see it's looking a little bit more of the way I would like it to look. So don't be afraid to alter vintage fabrics. I just want to show how different right here looks compared to this side. Now the trick is to do the leaves in the exact mirrored image on this side. So I finished the leaves, and I'm going to go into the flowers now. I'm using the same pink as I used down here for the flowers. So what I'm going to do, I'm just doing like a little straight stitch just at the bottom there. I just want to add right down the middle. But I'm doing it with 3 strands of this pink. So it will be very subtle, but I didn't want to take away from the original stitching either. So now you can see that flower just has a little hint of the darker pink. Just makes the petals stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to keep going, and I will come back when I have this done. So there's the spine now. I think it looks so much prettier. Don't be afraid to add something if you think that some vintage linen can look even more like what you want it to look like. So just have fun. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. This is an ongoing project because there's still so much to do. So this is where I'm at, and I will be back again with more of what I'm working on this. This is my slow stitch notebook cover, and there will be more because this is so much fun. I'm having just such a blast coming up with ideas, solving problems, and adding things to this. Please check out my website at LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with the Y, for more inspiration. And please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this progress as it's going. I hope you caught the earlier ones. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!